Welcome back. You're listening to the Flow Friday Sports Show on Flow FM. It's time to go to Bruce Phillips, one of our sports gurus who frequently appears on this program, and we're talking all about Speedway, the latest action, and what we can expect around the circuits this weekend. Lovely to be back with you, Bruce. How are you?
Yeah, not bad, mate, and good to be back. And another week goes by. I'll tell you a little story, Ella. So I was talking to a bloke in Murray Bridges last week, and he was on his way back from Mount Gambier travelling, and he hit the radio up there going through the southeast region of South Australia, and down there near that magnificent new venue getting re-established slowly, the Thomas Speedway, and he was travelling through that area down the south there, and flicked the radio on to Flow FM, and all of a sudden up come Big Brucey doing the Speedway report, and he was very impressed. So good to get some feedback of people out there on the road tuning in to hear the Speedway coverage across Australia.
Absolutely, Bruce. We're getting plenty of good feedback as we beam into South Australia, New South Wales and Victoria with the Flow Friday Sports Show. Now let's go to last weekend's action in Toowoomba. Tell us all about what went down last weekend, Bruce.
Well, it was a little bit of a quiet weekend for Speedway last weekend across Australia, and just one major meeting that was running, and that was up there at the High Tech Oils Toowoomba Speedway. And it was the UFC Round 1, UFC obviously standing for Ultimate Sprint Car Challenge, and up there in Queensland, Round 1. And they had a pretty good field up there last week, a big field. And in the end, it was a Lachlan McHugh getting the chocolates and parking it in Victory Lane in just emphatic fashion. He really did have the car motoring, and I watched some of the footage on the through the social media channels, and he just really took this one by the scruff of the neck in the NQ7. So great victory to Lockie McHugh, and look, he's getting back into that some of that form where he just continually won feature after feature a couple of years ago. In second place, it was, the one we try and claim as our own here in South Australia, of course, Brock Hallett driving the Q5, a contract car up there in Queensland, and it was great to see Brock Hallett, of course, South Australian boy, but he now lives in, as we've said on this program, in Portland there, just over the border from South Australia, and he really had the Q5 up and running. I really think Brock Hallett are probably going around as one of the most much improved drivers, and he really has emerged, especially in the last 12 months, 18 months, has Brock Hallett. And that was a great victory for him. You know, down here, races a lot of the tracks down here, you know, the likes of Mount Gambier and Murray Bridge and, of course, Warrnambool, a little bit at Avalon. But to go up there in the eastern states, up in the north there at Queensland, unfamiliar territory. I mean, the cars probably used to be up there as it's based in Queensland. But to go up there and get a second place on the podium, great effort by Brock Hallett. In third place was one of the other Queensland guns. And look, I think you probably could have at the start of the night put these three on the podium and said, well, I'm not quite sure which order they'll go, but I'm sure Lockie McHugh, Brock Hallett and Luke Oldfield in the Q17 would make the podium. And that's pretty much how it finished. Well, it's exactly how it finished. McHugh, Hallett and Oldfield. Michael Stewart was in fourth, and Ian Madsen, who is probably just starting to get back into the Australian way of life. He's been racing over in America, of course, the dual citizenship, and Ian Madsen just getting some meetings in before the big up-and-coming meetings across South Australia and of course, Victoria. And we think of not just the Grand Annual Sprint Car Classic in about the third week of January, but, of course, the big Speed Week that's coming up at the end of December. That should be an absolutely packed few nights there across Murray Bridge, Mount Gambier, Avalon, Warrnambool. 5 nights of racing should be an absolute, and then back to Warrnambool, should be an absolute action-packed event. That series will be where the drivers really do put their bodies on the line. They put all their team on the line, and to race 5 nights in a week, pretty tough going. And pretty much the other 2 nights you're either recovering or you're travelling, and that should be a really good series coming up. So that sort of wraps up last weekend, and not a lot of racing, as we said. And that sort of brings us to this weekend's racing, and a bit going on around Australia. And we think of the opening meeting down there at the Premier Speedway, Warrnambool. Look, it should be an absolute belter down there for the SRA Open Sprint Car Series Round 2. Of course, they had Round 1 last week at the week before last week at Moama, and this one should be even better. 43 nominations, so a huge field going to run down there at the SunGold Premier Speedway. And look, let's go through some of the nominations listed, especially from South Australia. We've got Daniel Pesca, the Strathalbyn steamer, and he'll be steamed up over there racing for us, South Australians, in the S27. Glenn Sutherland out of Mount Gambier racing the S20. Look, Glenn 20 usually puts on a good show, so let's hope he can keep it on the four wheels upright and get a good result. A much improved driver, Scott Endell, who's had Stephen Lyons' father, Mark Lyons, crewing for the car. So we look forward to seeing Scott Endell perhaps produce some of the results that Stephen Lyons has produced with his father, Mark, crewing on the car. Look, these cars are just unbelievable. They really are. It's a lot about the setup, how the track's going, and what sort of spacing they need on the wheels, and whether they put the wings forward or the wings back. The wings, of course, hydraulically operated whilst the track and the race is in motion, and it really is all about the setup. So having Mark on the crew chief there for the Endell racing will be a big bonus for Scotty Endell. Of course, Scotty Endell on the off-season plays a bit of footy down there in the Western Border League as well, so he really does get amongst the sport. Jock Goodyear will be driving in the gates, of course, in the Australia 1 out of Tasmania, and that will be a big draw card for the crowd. You throw in guys like Brock Hallett making the journey back down from Toowoomba to race this one, so some big names will be pulling in here to SunGold Speedway in likes of Marcus Dumsey in the N47 out of New South Wales, another big contender, and guys like Tate Frost and the T62, and Ryan Jones, our own Murray Bridge champ, absolute gun, Ryan Jones in the S63 out of South Australia's Murray Bridge. He'll also be amongst that field. So should be a big night down there at Premier Speedway on Saturday night. We're heading down there. We've got to make the road trip, and should be an absolute bumper meeting on Mount Max down there with 43 cars nominated, mate.
Fantastic, Bruce. Well, let's also take a look at what's happening at the Perth Motorplex across the weekend. Unpack that one for us.
Yeah, it should be a good meeting over there. Not quite as many cars, but a good nomination field, though. 26 cars. So that is really up on previous years at the Perth Motorplex. You know, they've sort of sat at about 18 to 20. So 26 cars, a couple of new drivers in there and a couple returning. Called the Sprint Car Westernopolis. So say that with a couple of frothies, it might be difficult, but look, should be a great night there, Perth Motorplex on Saturday night. Let's have a look at some of those nominations. Of course, Brad Maiola in the fancily turned out blue W77 looks absolutely immaculate. You've got guys over there like Cam Williamson, Callum Williamson in the W3 is probably one of the favourites. Jason Pride out of the JPM W14, he'll be up there amongst it. And, of course, you've got last meeting's winner in Dane Kingshot out of the W2 and the Cricky Boys team. So it should be a good meeting over there. 26 nominated. Kingshot probably the favourite from Williamson. And probably you'd throw in there in third place, probably maybe Mayolo or Jason Kendrick. He's had a pretty good start to the season in the W11, but should be a good meeting over there. For the Sprint Car Westernopolis, I'm glad I haven't had a couple of frothies in me to say that, but it should be a great meeting over there in Perth, and a lot happening as we start to get into November now, and just a few weeks away from the big opening of the big Speed Week, which sees the races really put on a big show and some big nominations with of course, the American drivers coming over to get all ready for that huge 3 days of action over there at the Premier Speedway with the Grand Annual Sprint Car Classic 23-24. Should be can't wait, Ellis.
Just quickly before we let you go, Bruce, just reversing back a little bit to the race in Warrnambool this weekend at the Premier track there. The significance of the achievement of your son Lockie and his platform, Local Sprint Car Photography and Media, the 9th time he'll be in attendance, I believe. Just quickly, your thoughts on that and, you know, how big of an achievement that is.
Yeah, very proud of the son. 9 years he'll been getting in the middle down there, which is just extraordinary. South Australian photographer getting into an interstate venue. And look, this guy, he just absolutely lives, eats and breathes Speedway. And big thanks to him behind the scenes, sets up all the waffle that I go on with here. And he puts a lot of work into it. And a great little page. It's just starting to head towards 10,000 followers, which is pretty good. They're only a few, about 60 odd away now from 9,000. So it really is a very informative page. And look, you can go on there on race nights and you can get all the grids and the winners. You can even get the losers and the ones that don't finish. And it really is a full, complete page. And not just in Australia, it also covers with nearly 1,000 followers in the United States, and he covers all the states contests over there in the racing, and it really is a great informative page. But look, big thanks to the Premier Speedway, and it really is, he's just following his dreams, and he loves doing what he does, and certainly looking forward to a big weekend and a big start to the Premier Speedway down there this weekend with the opening meeting.
Well done, young Lockie Phillips and Bruce Phillips for that matter. It's a Phillips tag team duo bringing us our Speedway coverage here on the Flow Friday Sports Show. Brucey, we'll speak to you again next week. Have a great weekend.
I look forward to being back next week with all the results of this week's action.